Just answering questions on this channel with WildTech. Interesting things to look up today, but mostly meh. So here we go. You hold very strongly to your perspective, having just found your channel, and this being my first video. Are you up to speed? Have you already looked into, and I haven't read this, the Great Reset, modern grand solar minimum solar cycles causing climate effects, food rationing starting in late 2021, early 2022. Actually, that's a repost of a story from 2012 forward. This is the same thing that keeps having this pushed back. TechnoCracy. What about TheoCracy? TheoCracy. What about theologists running the country, which they want because they have no power over me? You have no power in my evil, sinful ways of being on the internet and YouTubing. The technocracy you're talking about can't happen. I was part of the evil horde of computer geeks that were going to help rule this planet with an evil slide rule. But nothing happened for a simple reason. Animal level reality and nature. It doesn't matter how well you design an engine, it's going to produce carbon dioxide. It doesn't matter how well you make your solar panels, you're still producing shit that damages the environment. It doesn't matter how good the batteries are because Elon Musk exists. Nothing we do is really going to make a major change until we realize the good and bad in everything. And that's something I'm going to shove down everybody's throat. It doesn't matter what your opinion is here. I'm not making this about you. And also I'm not being mean to you. None of the methodologies humans use as a horde or individually are going to make a difference unless we figure out what doesn't work and stop fucking doing it. And you know what? Sometimes we have to go back to things we didn't think worked. At one time, sulfa drugs didn't work to cure bacterial infections, but I'm one of a very large number of people where that's the only thing that works, and it works just fine to kill off stuff like MRSA. And now I have a couple of relatives who've gone through this, not just friends. There was a gigantic outbreak of extremely resistant bacteria that most people heard about. Flesh-eating staph, flesh-eating strep. Some of you remember those horror stories. I'm one of them. Chiseled features. Trust me, I was the one holding the hammer. And you know what? Sometimes the old methods work again. They run in cycles. If you're going to kill off bacteria, you have to use antibiotics, whatever works. Doesn't matter if they're supposed to. And eventually you should use bacteriophages, because if they adapt to the bacteriophages, they go back to being sensitive to the antibiotics. But soap always works. Just saying. But anyway, Paul and many others seem to represent themselves as a medium low on the sophistication of insight's intellect, of which there are tons of people listening to them at or below that level. Actually, no. That's actually something I have to correct you on here. Very smart people will listen to people who are absolutely stupid. I'm not being mean here either. Donald Trump is inarguably incredibly brilliant in one way, the way he interacts with people and is able to do things. But on another level, Donald Trump is stone stupid on some things, just like everybody else. That's a big trap. Don't assume that people that follow someone you think is dumb are dumber. They're not. Some people just choose to not be smart about something because it doesn't give them any benefit. Me being smart when I was younger didn't give me anything. I don't have a home to live in except through a relative right now. I had an opportunity to buy a house for just nothing and I didn't take advantage of it. It doesn't matter how smart or intelligent you are. You can still do incredibly dumb things for prolonged periods of time. And any group of people can be talked into doing something very bad for themselves. Happens all the time. I'd give everybody a gigantic block of salt on this and a huge amount of leeway because we all screw up. And if you don't realize that, you're not going to do good. And I'm not trying to argue with you if I think that you're arguing with me or some other pathological thing like that. It's always a trap to do that. But the first thing that has to bring up is a grand solar minimum is an assumption that there's a string of solar minimums because there's a solar minimum every 11 years or so. And a grand solar minimum is a string of them for over several hundred years or several decades at bare minimum. And like I said, people have been predicting this since 2012. We're in 2020. That's only 10 stinking years. That's not enough to have a grand solar minimum even show. And you know what? It isn't a grand solar minimum. But it's coming any day now. No, it's not. Because the only time you know a grand solar minimum has happened is after the fact. It's something you observe, not predict. Grand solar minimums are not predicted. And the one person who claims to have predicted one did it by retroactively noticing a pattern for a 30-year period of time. That's the only time it worked. Using the same mathematics, the same hypothesis didn't work before or after that point in any way. And again, about 80% of this is people trying not to admit that the reason the environment's changing in a way that doesn't get predicted very well, but seems to get worse, but not really hot or cold, that's a mistake people make, is solar energy being trapped in the atmosphere. That's called global warming. At one time it was called global cooling. I don't know if you understand that, but there was supposed to be a big ice age or a human-caused ice age or a heat age. It's neither. The heat isn't being retained as heat, although it is retained as heat on a whole. It's retained like pressurizing a balloon you can squeeze more. The more air you have in it, the more violent the squeezes are. That's all you're doing. If you have a completely or almost completely uninflated, sausage balloon like they used to make balloon animals out of, if you squeeze one under the other, it doesn't really make a big change. But if you overinflate it, you're really pushing it. And then when you try to squeeze it into a container, it'll pop out like a big zip. That's a bad analogy, except it really isn't. The more heat energy is added to this planet and retained, the more dynamic the weather can be, not always will be. It becomes less predictable. You're adding chaos to the engine. If it had very little energy added to it, like let's say we had really, really cold weather, like an ice age, you can still have dynamic weather, harsh weather. But the more heat that's added, the more dynamic it gets for violent storms and that sort of thing. It's not global warming or global cooling or an ice age. It just means it's getting worse. The more placid and well-behaved it is, the better off we are. And yeah, that means liberals need to stop using that expression. Global climate change. Just changing the climate. That's all it is. That's happened for millennia. But when we cause something to change, like changing the course of a river, or creating a drought area or a desert by over-farming it and screwing it up and creating the Dust Bowl, that's a disaster we've caused. It doesn't matter what the disaster really means. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's something we've caused. And as a species, people are very short-sighted. They hope they drop dead before they have to deal with the consequences of their own actions. Well, I'm willing to take that some of you will die, but I'm willing to take that chance, that kind of attitude. That's the problem I have with people who have ridiculous amounts of money and have their own underground bunker. Because they do. I helped wire one once. Anyway, they resonate with him, the Paul Bagley and the others. I don't know if I see him as much of an issue as all those who hang on the steady drip from him. It seems the sheeple will be the ones dragging us all off the cliffs. No. They just make sure that we're not able to steer clearly and reliably, making sure that the nuts and bolts are pulled out every once in a while. And, the power steering's damaged a little bit. They don't want to be responsible for driving us off the cliff, even though they want the world to come to an end, because that means Jesus is coming back, or some other thing that they might believe sometimes. Or maybe just they want the world to burn. But they don't actually do that. They don't drag you off the cliff. They're the ones who made sure it was there in the first place. They made sure that you don't know about it. They make sure the roads got the painted lines going the wrong way. They're the ones going because we run into the wall because we thought it was a tunnel. That analogy literally went off the road. But anyway. I do appreciate your comments. You're the only one who commented, apparently. God, I'm lonely. Also, I'm going to be revisiting the, if anybody cares, the Delphi murders. Some audio came up a while ago that I just ignored because honestly it wasn't really different, but I guess I'm going to have to dismantle it. Work my really low-grade audio skills. Try to clean it up. And it's been brought to my attention that there's yet another annoying person out there telling people the lies they want to hear like you're talking about. So I'll just put his information into this video just as an afterthought here. Scott McKay, Patriot Street Fighter. Several videos debunking him, but he got caught falsifying having his evidence source being from somebody. Or more accurately, someone trolled him and he just repeated it, demonstrating that if you know how to massage someone's ego, you can get anything out of them. I'm trying to make that really, really sound like a massage parlor joke. But anyway, I don't know anything about the guy. I only know that the videos below will link to that, and watch it if you want to for entertainment. But as for a grand solar minimum and all the other things, this is something that's been a failed prediction for literally 10 years or more now, and it's just gotten old. There's a couple of channels that were into it who got in bed with people who were mob boss-like, who threatened them with horrible, horrible, nasty, reputation-ruining web pages, just like that same person had ruined mine and everybody else's who debunked them, and they ended up with, well, they were tamed. And it's sad. It's really dirty business dealing with conspiracy theorists and UFO people and all that kind of stuff. But people who predict the end of the world because they want to create a cult following are the worst, because they don't give a damn about facts, reality, or who they kill. Not just her. They're really, really, really terrible people. But some people are just interested as a subject, and they get mowed under too. Again, don't assume people are smarter or dumber than another group, whatever. That's always a trap. Just assume that people are smarter in one area than they are in another. We all have our weaknesses and our strengths. And as long as the information's out there, most of us are able to find it. Some get stuck. We get fixated. And that's normal. But no, there isn't going to be a Technocracy, because that just isn't going to work. You'd have to have geeks kind of running it. And the solar cycles, grand solar minimum, blah, 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 is always misdefined or just lied about by all these groups. And a lot of them want to appeal to someone who literally wants to watch the world come to an end because it'll make all their pain go away. I think it's some sort of group therapy for some people who are really, really hurt. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Thanks for your comment. Sorry I sound depressing right now.